Now let's revisit our top story on the United Nations publishing a detailed secret government program tagged Sulu. Now it's designed to pull commanders of terrorist groups, including Boko Haram and the Islamic State for West Africa province, out of the forests, with a view to rehabilitate and provide them with a new means of livelihood. This development is coming as intelligence agencies have begun investigating into the recent surrender of over 1,200 terrorists and their families in the last 3 weeks. Now, according to This Day, our sister platform, there is an emerging question regarding whether or not the seeming mass surrenders were genuine or indeed a ploy to activate and coordinate terror sleeper cells across the country. Communities and traditional institutions in the northeast of Nigeria have protested the potential reintegration of the insurgents into their communities. Well, for some expert analysts around this subject matter, we are now being joined by former Army Director of Public Relations, Brigadier General SANI USMAN, retired. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much for having me on your program.
Okay.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Good to have you join us. Now, I imagine you know that the response to this kind of news is met with a lot of frustration on behalf of people who feel they have suffered the brunt of these terrorist attacks. How do you feel our government can justify this kind of a program?
Well, it is not about how I feel as an individual. I think the issue here is a combination of a lot of factors, and you cannot deal with any one of them in isolation of the other. Take, for instance, we have had this terrorism and insurgency in this country for 12 years now. And, you know, the wanton destructions and loss of lives and what have you has been going on for 12 years. And it is about time that we should also think of better ways of handling it so that there will be peace in this country. Then associated with that, there are issues that will come up, issue of justice, issue of, demobilization, first and foremost, disarmament, demobilization, rehabilitation, and reintegration, and so on and so forth. Therefore, every Nigerian, not only direct victims of these terrorist activities, has every reason to be concerned about that issue. And that brings me to the next aspect, which is the importance of strategic communication. No government policy or conflict sensitivity programs that will be done without taking into cognizance the end user. By the end user, I'm talking about the Nigerian society. Whatever you do, you have to carry them along. People have to have their buy-in. Whatever recommendations are there, the implementation strategies must be realistic. And being realistic is that it should be people-oriented and people-centric. So the missing component here is the communication gap. And there are so many conspiracy theories and stories about what it all entails. And now, given with the recent development, the UN report, which was carried by your partner paper, you know, it has brought in entirely a different dimension to it. First and foremost, we have, the justice system, the GIWA project. Then we have the Operation Safe Haven. Then now you have the Sulhu program. So this and more, the government need to carry the people along and tell them the truth so that people will understand. And before you even go on there are people that every Nigerian is a stakeholder, because whatever happens in any corner or part of the country affects other parts of the country, even those Nigerians that are in diaspora, and of course other people of the world, because terrorism these days is transborder crime, that people that are not even Nigerians, they have interest in the well-being and development of Nigeria. So whatever you are doing, you have to take all those things into consideration. Take, for instance, now the issue of the justice system. A lot of people are not aware of the fact that some of these terrorists have been arraigned. Those, particularly those involved in the Giwa projects, they have been arraigned before competent court of law, and they have been sentenced to various jail terms and punishments. But again, the issue here is, at what extent is the present justice system in the country capable of meting out justice to the victims of terrorism and insurgency in this country, particularly those people that you look at a family of 10, now you have only one person surviving. The remaining 9 were killed. And possibly they have known the person who perpetrated that crime. Either they have seen him when he was doing it, or he confessed to have done it. To what extent will you remedy that situation? And these are the issues that we really need to sit down, talk about it, let people understand that, yes, we have all been victimized, we are all victims, but we have to, allow peace to reign. And how do we allow peace to reign? By making sure that justice is served. We have had instances where countries were involved in this kind of complex situation. Colombia had terrorism and insurgency for almost over 50 years. At the end of the day, they come back to the negotiating table and they are doing it. And just closer home, we have had instances, in Sierra Leone. You remember the 10-year, civil war, to the extent that, the RUF were involved. A small boy will just ask an elderly man, what do you want? Is it short sleeve or long sleeve? I have seen the victims myself. When you say long sleeve, they will cut your, arms, just by the fingertips here. But if it is long sleeve, they will cut it by somewhere around here. And these people, they know them. Now they have to work out a justice system in which, there is peace and stability in that country. And going to Rwanda also, you remember the genocide in the early 90s? They have had it, but they work out a mechanism of justice system through truth and reconciliation, the gachacha, and what have you. So Nigeria cannot be oblivious of this kind of developments, and that is why the government has to take lead, has to come out clean and talk to the people, particularly, the opinion leaders, the leaders, be it religious, traditional, and get their buy-ins. Then they will get the direct victims, also talk to them and assure them that justice is being done, not just to the lives and the properties that were lost, but to the fact that these things will not happen again. Then coming back to those who perpetrate these acts of terrorism, they must also be made to understand that there is no way you can commit atrocities and go with it. But if I may also go back, what we are seeing is a combination of a lot of factors that have taken place over time. But the most importantly is the concerted efforts of our military and security forces, in which they are dealing decisively with the terrorism, which is in line with their mandate, so that they can bring them to a certain level that they will understand the might and the superiority of the Nigerian people and the Nigerian government and its coercive element, which is the military. Now, again, there were other non-kinetic aspects. Just for instance, the flyers that have been, sent. I could remember way back when I was Director of Army Public Relations, we have had flyers sent across using the Nigerian Air Force. I could remember thousand upon thousand, throwing it down so that they can understand. Because you see, what the terrorist camp have is a one-way track of communication.
USMAN, if I may come in, because I appreciate the broad spectrum you've laid out for us to consider, but I just want to direct your focus to where people may feel some sense of, do you say, inequity, for want of a better word, or injustice even, is the fact that even though you can describe all these various efforts being made, and none of them, we're not trying to discredit any one of them, we haven't seen anything near as weighty being meted out to the victims. So we speak of rehabilitation. A lot of times we hear firsthand how the victims of these terrorism and abductions come back and they're pretty much left to their own devices. Poor parents who have had to do everything in their power to raise a ransom without the support of the government are now left with children who are traumatized even by the sound of something resembling what they have faced. So if we had had more of these kind of efforts being made towards the victims, perhaps wouldn't that balance the equation somewhat? Briefly.
That's what I told you. I talked about the importance of strategic communication in a situation of this nature. And I told you there are three things going on. The GIWA project, in which, terrorists were arraigned before competent laws of jurisdiction and, courts of jurisdictions, in which some of them have been sentenced to jail time. And I could remember one of the justices, I don't know for sure, I think it should be Justice Mita Murtala Inyako is one of the justices also. And the Operation Safe Corridor, the one in Gombe State, in which there is a radicalization program in which these people are being trained, they are being, it's a kind of trying to see the bad, the negative aspect of the ideology. And it is very important. You see, the terrorism that we are having here is more or less, yes, it has political undertone, but to a large extent, there is this issue of religious ignorance and ideology. If you do not dispel it, you are bound to have problems. Take, for instance, there are many of them, they claim to be Muslims, but they don't even know nothing about Islam. And, over time, they have been programmed to think what they are doing is the right thing. So you really need to remove that kind of, ideology from them. And that takes time. Then coming back to what you are talking about, justice system. The people in GIWA project that were sentenced, possibly that is the justice system. Then, of course, the issue of those on the Operation Safe Corridor, in which they are being trained to be integrated into the Nigerian society. And now those people that have voluntarily surrendered based on the heat and, of course, the problems associated between ISWAP and Shekau faction, and the fact that there are psychological efforts being done by the Nigerian military beyond the kinetic aspect. Now, to what extent are you serving justice? And that is where the government will come into play. The strategic communication, they have to tell people that, look, these people, they will not go scot-free. And it is part of it. And these are the terms. The federal government and the state government. The federal government, will come out with the terms in conjunction with the state government, and to what extent the state government will sensitize the people so that they can accept them. But let there be justice to the victims and all Nigerians too.
Thank you, sir, for giving us your time on this very complicated topic.